Welcome to another Thursday of IAmPatient. I'm Brenda Snow, and I am your host, and it's great to be with you again live. I think I told you last week, and thanks for bearing with us with some technical difficulties, that this week's guest would not disappoint. She's absolutely wonderful, and I think that you will learn a lot from her today and be inspired by her. She's really an amazing person. So let me introduce you to Jasmine Sowers. She's a breast cancer survivor from Jacksonville, Florida. And she was diagnosed with stage 1 cancer that resulted in a bilateral mastectomy. And you'll hear why. When she was just only 26 years old, she underwent reconstruction and 25 rounds of proton therapy radiation. She still takes medication today. She lives a really great purpose-driven life. She's got, I think, all of the core values in the right place. She's the founder of, and I love this, The Breast of Us. And she's passionate, really a passionate advocate for helping young women and particularly women of color affected by breast cancer. So without further ado, Jasmine, welcome to today's show. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, as I said, you are really inspirational. And I always like to set the stage with people's story. And, you know, none of us ever think, particularly when they were as young as you're going along and jamming in life. And then all of a sudden, you know, what? So tell us a little bit about your breast cancer journey. How did you find out you had it? You know, what was that moment from diagnosis and these challenges like that you went through?
So when I was 25, ironically, I did my first breast cancer walk for my 25th birthday. And it was really in honor of my grandmother and my cousin that I lost to breast cancer in her 40s, and a few of my aunts as well. And I think the irony of it is I made a shirt and it said, "Screw the Tata, save the woman." And about maybe 3-4 months after that is when I started showing symptoms that something was wrong. So I was having a very painful left breast. It was really swollen. And then I noticed that sometimes I would take off my bra and there were stains inside of my bra, but I didn't know where they were coming from. So I'm like, well, that's weird.
Whoa.
I remember that there was a coworker. I used to work in communications at a homeless shelter. And one of my coworkers put on a breast cancer event, and I went and they were teaching how to do self-exams. Mm-hmm. And I always say, like, had she had not done that event or had I had not gone, I probably wouldn't have even known like how to check myself. But because I did know how to do a self-exam. And I was doing one. I noticed as I was going down my breast, like there were parts that just felt really hard. And I'm like, this is weird. And then I got to a section where discharge expelled. And then I'm like, okay, something is wrong.
And that would be why the connection, something in my bra.
Exactly. Yeah. So I remember actually I went to the hospital first, and I went to the hospital because I called my mom. I was wearing a ribbed t-shirt, and you know, they have the lines across them. So you can see very clearly when they're out of balance. And I'm like, Mom, I'm worried something's wrong. And we went to the hospital and they said, well, it's not red and we can't replicate the discharge. So go see your primary care doctor. We did that. And we did a mammogram and an ultrasound. And at that time, I was not aware that mammograms weren't effective screening methods for young women, specifically because of our dense breast tissue. So I really thought that everything that could be done had been done.
Wow.
Unfortunately, that was not the case. When both of those screenings came back negative, I was like, okay, well, something's still wrong, but at least it's not cancer. Over the months that I was having the same issues too, in that people typically tell you that breast cancer doesn't hurt. And I had a very painful breast. And they also talk about finding a lump, and I never felt a lump. And so they said, maybe it's a breast infection. And I said, well, I don't have any other symptoms of an infection. So I didn't do antibiotics. I just kind of see, like, would it clear up on its own?
And what's the timeline of this from you saying something's wrong to, the ER not treating you and a doctor saying, oh, these are negative? I mean, are we talking about weeks or months?
So I think this probably started in like March of 2016. And then now we're closer to April, May, because I was looking to get another job, but I was waiting on the results from that mammogram and that ultrasound before I decided to take the other job. So they came back negative. I take the other job. And I start that job in May. And then in October, I go to talk to my OBGYN, and I'm still having these issues. And now the discharge is red.
Oh my God.
So I go to her and I'm like, I know we're ready to start family planning, but I really need you to check out this breast. And she agreed. Like, she couldn't replicate the discharge either, but she agreed that it was concerning. And she sent me to a breast surgeon who was a specialist. And I'm so thankful for that decision, because the breast surgeon was not willing to settle with inconclusive results. We kept doing tests until she figured out what was wrong. So a different kind of mammogram, another ultrasound. But ultimately what found my cancer was a breast MRI. And by the time that we did the screening, almost the entire breast lit up with the contrast. I just remember, and this time was around November, and I just remember the look on my doctor's face as I walked in that day, and we were looking at the imaging. And I think that was the first time I saw her look really worried, because I wasn't expecting to see like this big blob. That's just not what we're trained to think about. We always think about these little nodules. So the day that I was actually diagnosed was December 30th, 2016, right before New Year's. I remember thinking, like, this next year is going to be horrible. And ironically, it wasn't. I think, it was a tough year, but I grew so much from the experience. What
an incredible attitude.
Yeah.
What an incredible attitude. This is what I find the most inspirational about all the people that I've gotten to speak to over the course of the last 20 years. Is like, in the face of the biggest adversity, with the, like, in some cases, life-threatening diagnoses, the people that, like yourself, that say, but I learned so much. I grew so much, it changed me. I'm a better person, or a better mother, or a better wife, or daughter, or sister. And, I think it's only through that unique experience, can you sort of come to this higher level of consciousness almost, I really feel that. And you said something super important, and I want you to say it again, because I know really women of color and young women, MRI, don't settle for those results necessarily, because the density of the breast is different. That's something I did not know until today.
Absolutely. And so I always tell people now, like, to be careful what you ask for, or to know what you're asking for, because we're all told to ask for mammograms. They're just not effective for all of us. And so there are some websites like Breast Cancer or Breast 360 where you can go and you can see the different type of screening. So maybe you can recommend to your doctor, hey, would I be a good candidate for a breast MRI? So the thing with the breast MRI is that they tend to be more sensitive. And so sometimes they pick up things that aren't necessarily cancer, but they can see some things that mammograms miss.
Interesting. And you said that website is Breast 360?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have my producer pop that up right now, everybody out there. And again, if you are watching this show, whether you're watching it live or you're picking it up afterwards, and anybody whose life has been touched by breast cancer, please ping this and forward the program to them. I'm going to give a big shout out to my dearest friend from high school. And she's just over, I think, 5-6 years breast cancer survivor. So Charisse, I'm going to ping you to watch this later. And Jasmine, I can only imagine how you felt at 26 years old. What happened next? And, I guess you must have been really scared and frightened. And It just seems so young. That's what you hear, right? To get a diagnosis at 26.
Absolutely. And so we have, I didn't really have a good concept of different types of breast cancers. I didn't really have an understanding of what genetic breast cancer was. All I knew was that it ran in the family. I didn't really know that there were like genes connected to it. I just knew that my grandmother had it, her sisters had it. I assumed when I got older, I would probably have it. Like I just saw it running down.
But you're BRCA negative.
I am BRCA negative. And what they said is that there's likely a gene in my family that hasn't been discovered yet.
Wow.
So it was an interesting experience. I remember going in that day with my mom and my husband to get the results. And earlier that week, I woke up one morning and there's a Christian song called It Is Well. And I woke up and I just started singing it. And in my spirit, I was like, I know it's cancer. So, but if the song is It Is Well, then that means no matter what happens, it's all good. And I didn't tell my mom that. I just remember telling my mom, like, we got to like prepare ourselves, all options. All things are possible means all things, not just good things, all things, and we can get through it. And she was like, you're being so negative. So I had kind of like talked to myself out of that piece that I was given. And I was like, I'm being negative. And I remember walking into that room, like we were making jokes, like we were just like, it's a breeze, like this is not cancer.
Like, yeah.
It's something else, not that serious. And when the doctor came in and like sat down and she put her hand on my knee and she said, okay, so there were cancerous cells. And I legit looked around the room to see who she was talking to. I felt like,
it can't be me.
I did. I remember looking at my mom like, what?
Yeah.
But like we said, it was not cancer. So I was in complete shock. But then I really very quickly said, okay, how bad is it? She's like, we don't know yet. We're hoping it's stage 1 or stage 2. And then I said, what do we do? Like, what's next? Let's get this show on the road. And like, I'm sure she gave me a lot of information and it felt like Charlie Brown. Like, I don't remember
the teacher, right?
I remember her
my life is like that, Jasmine. Yeah.
Like she was drawing pictures of like milk bags and stuff. And I like remember like watching her draw. I remember not a word that she said after that, but things moved very quickly. I had like a 2-week time span where it was diagnosis to what I initially chose was a bilateral mastectomy. And I chose a bilateral mastectomy because they had a difficult time determining staging. So I had multicentric tumors, so multiple tumors with like no focus. Sometimes tumors, they cluster.
Yes.
Mine didn't do that. So across 9 centimeters, multiple tumors, and they were having a hard time determining whether they should look at the whole 9 centimeters or they should look at the size of the largest tumor. So that was a rough couple of weeks. Every other day, somebody was calling, you need chemo. No, you don't. But I ultimately just decided to do a bilateral mastectomy because I was already top heavy. And I did proton therapy at the Florida Proton Therapy Institute, and they were absolutely amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yes. And then I opted out of chemo, and I'm on hormone therapy now.
Wow. And so with hormone therapy, I know we're going to talk about a lot of things, but you're in Florida. We started this program thinking about the impacts of COVID on people that are immunosuppressed and compromised. And, it's not going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. And I know in Florida, right now, at least you're not in Miami, but that is the new epicenter. Tell me with the hormone therapy you're on, how are you and your cancer friends, breast cancer, how are you handling COVID? We know wash our hands, wear a mask, but what are some of your key insights there?
I think it's interesting. A lot of us have had conversations about how cancer probably prepared us for COVID more than the average person, because we've all had to go into those experiences where we were isolated or maybe couldn't be around a lot of people. For me, my body really struggled after I finished active treatment. Like, I was in and out the hospital every few weeks, just because my white blood cell count it just never really bounced back, especially with the hormone therapy. So I've been very cognizant of being around sick people, and I've been carrying masks in my purse for like the last 3 years. So it's interesting because I think a lot of us, like, we kind of know how to navigate this space.
That's interesting.
For some people, I think it may be a little triggering to know how to navigate this space again and to feel that isolation. For me, I think it's interesting because I feel like these are the kind of rules I wanted everyone to follow the last 3 years. Don't be around me if you're sick. No unnecessary touching. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like there's just a little
Stay
bit
the heck
more
away from me. Wash your hands. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does it cause you stress? And I mean, mentally and emotionally, how are you feeling about, like, maybe needing to chill in your house for another, 9 months to a year, or till there's a vaccine, which maybe, I don't know, none of us immunocompromised. Maybe we don't take the first round. I don't know.
I was having that conversation with my mom. I said, I think I might get on the second round. But I don't think it's caused me stress about being in the house. I think on the opposite end of that, when I feel stressed, sometimes I want to leave the house. And I think, like, so I'm not getting stressed about having to be here, but there are times I'm stressed and I don't want to be contained.
Yeah.
So for me, I try not to go out too much. I don't go out with that unless I have a mask, because it's an unnecessary risk, in my opinion.
It is.
Yeah.
So where are you at with your breast cancer journey right now today? Your health, you're in good health. What's the status?
So I am currently in no evidence of disease, which I'm very happy about. I am also, thank you. I am also going to Mayo Clinic. We have blessed to have a Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and the UF Health Proton Therapy Institute. And I'm trying to reevaluate my current treatment plan. I want to make sure that I'm on the best options for me. And I always tell people, like, never be afraid to get a second opinion. So now I have 2 oncologists. And so cancer is like, it's an ongoing journey, so right now that's what we're doing. We're reevaluating the treatment plan to make sure I'm on the best treatment plan possible.
That's great. Well, if you aren't already a fighter and a champion and spectacular enough, you co-founded an organization called The Breast of Us. So tell us how it got started and why. And, like, I literally have goosebumps when I said that, because it's something that's so needed. And I think you really tapped into something so needed. Tell us about it.
Thank you. So, when I started my journey, I very quickly realized that I was having a hard time finding other young women. Like, you're the youngest person in the support groups, you're the youngest person in the oncology office. And then I noticed that I was having a hard time finding imagery of Black women. So I know that I have to get a mastectomy, and I want to see what it looks like. And I couldn't really find any imagery of Black women with mastectomies. And so my first thought was, like, which one of us has the bad doctor? Do I have the bad doctor, and, like, they're telling me to do something nobody else is doing? Or do other people have the bad doctor and they're not being offered this choice? And then it's kind of the same experience going through radiation. The paperwork was about how your skin's going to swell, it's going to turn red, and if you have melanin, your skin turns dark. And I was like charcoal black, and it was really off-putting. I didn't feel prepared. And I couldn't find images of Black women that had gone through radiation. And so there wasn't really anything out there to really help me navigate my experience. So
yeah, no expectation setting, nothing that looked like you could see. I mean, yeah, at all. That's
no.
Shameful.
And even, I mean, you try to like find hashtags or find people, and there just was nothing that was really established to help connect the community, despite the mortality rate in the African American community. So you would think that because we have such a high mortality rate that we would be more elevated, but that just is not the way the world is working. So someone connected me to the Young Survival Coalition. And when I was there in 2018 with my mom, I thought it was the most beautiful experience ever. It was my first time being around other young survivors. And I've gone for like the past 2-3 years. And every time I cry when I look out they have like a dance party. And I look out on the floor and I just see women like having the time of their life. And it's just like, it's so encouraging because you know what they're going through or what they went through. And for them to like, they're not the odd girl out and everyone around them just gets it. It's like, it's the most beautiful thing ever. So when I left there, the next year comes around and I'm thinking like, okay, I want to see more Black women at the Young Survival event. And I was commenting and I connected with my current partner. And it was so interesting because we got a notification the other day and it said we'd known each other for 3 years. Like, we really didn't know each other for 3 years. Didn't know we were connected the whole time. But we met at the 2019 summit in Austin, Texas. And we really bonded over this mutual experience of being isolated among people that we knew. And also learning about the representation of specifically African-American women in clinical trials, which is about 6%.
Yeah.
And when it was being discussed, it was really dismissive. It was just like, Black women don't show up to clinical trials. And so people were like, so what are you doing differently? And I remember like leaving and just being really angry because it just seemed like we were dying in plain sight and nobody cared.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, well, this is just the way it's been and it will be. And, that's that. Yeah.
Exactly. But as we were having this conversation, I remember there was a Latino woman at the end, and I could tell that she was frustrated, and now she's one of my good friends. I love her to life. And there was another woman, and she was an Asian woman, and she was like, if you think it's hard for Black women, like, how am I going to find another, like, and so we just had this realization leaving, like, it wasn't just Black women that felt out of place. Like, really, the women of color felt out of place in the breast cancer community.
Yeah. And so then you were gonna,
and it doesn't seem like people are really deserved. So Marissa and we had a conversation. It was like, let's keep in touch. And that was in March. And by May, we had launched For the Breast of Us, which is the first community that's inclusive to all women of color affected by breast cancer.
That's absolutely fantastic. Do you have a website you want to give the URL to?
Yes, it is BreastDevicecom.
That is fantastic. And did you get a 501c3 status? This is a not-profit? A not-for-profit?
It's an LLC, actually.
It's an LLC. Okay, great. So an organization. Now, can you guys go out and do educational programs and speaking? I know you have a background in communications. So what are some of the things specifically that people can contact the Breast of Us for and do? What are some of the services that you can offer?
Oh my goodness. So it's interesting. When we first started, it was really to create, to kind of harness the power of the collective power of marginalized voices. It's like let's not create an Asian community and a Black community and Latino. Let's bring everyone together and let's create a space where we have that power and can pull each other along. And it was more about storytelling and sharing experiences, but it's very quickly become a place of education and a place for advocacy. So we have a private Facebook group. We call our ladies Breast Cancer Baddies. So we have a Breast Cancer Baddies Facebook group. It's not just a place where people can get support. It's also a place where we provide links to research, links to hot topic trending news, links to advocacy opportunities. We're really big on getting more women into research and advocacy. As we move into our second year, we're looking to expand our partnerships. Specifically, we've been working a lot in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
It's very political. There's so many politics in the nonprofit sector.
That's why I like what you're doing.
Even though we're not a nonprofit, it's still very political to maneuver. And I think we're looking to branch out a little bit more and to work more with for-profits, especially in terms of health and wellness and fitness and clean beauty. And so we're just looking to provide women those tools and resources to better navigate their journey and help them live better lives. That's ultimately it. Yeah. Better navigate their journey and live better lives.
That's fantastic. And, I've been working in, various disease categories and with people, patients and their families for over 20 years. And I just have such admiration for you really focusing on women of color, because I can't tell you how many times in my career, I've been saying, whether it was to industry partners or to nonprofits or to anybody will listen, there are unmet medical needs here. You're not being inclusive of a larger patient population, health literacy, like you said, looking like me. So what you're doing is just not only so noble, it's so needed, because I've seen it firsthand time and time again. So again, real bravo to you. I want to ask you too, I have another question here. Can you share a little bit more about sort of, from your perspective, the healthcare system and how kind of this dovetails what I was just sort of saying, and how it impacts people of color that you found through your research. So, like I said, I know it's not always been terrific. Share with me your perspective on this topic.
So I really think, in light of everything that's gone on with the recent high-profile cases with George Floyd and the protests, it really opened up these conversations about systemic racism. And for us, it really opened this conversation about not just systemic racism in the justice system, but systemic racism in the healthcare system. And I don't know how often we've really talked about systemic racism in the healthcare system, but we have to talk about it. When we established For the Breast of Us, it felt risky, I guess you could say, to create a space that was inclusive for women of color in 2020. And the idea was never to create a space that excluded white women as much as it was to create a space that included other women, because it's a lot easier to find the experiences of white women. Mm-hmm. But our friends that were white women want to know how to support us. Mm-hmm. So we created an accomplice guide. And it was just this, with everything going on with George Floyd, we decided to hold a seminar called Solidarity Sisters, and it was really geared towards our white counterparts. And we started from we want you guys to understand that if you want to understand the health disparities of today, you have to look at the foundation of our healthcare system. Sure. And you're looking at the father of gynecology, who would experiment on Black slave women without anesthesia, and because he assumed that Black people didn't feel pain. So they were basically being tortured so he could perfect his technique. And then he would perform the same technique on white women, but he would do it properly. And then you go into things like the Tuskegee experiment, which people don't realize. I mean, it was a 40-year span, but it ended in the 70s. Yeah. And that's really not that long ago.
No, it's unbelievable. Yeah. It's my lifetime.
Exactly. Right. It's my mom's lifetime as well. So it's you're really looking at these different experiences. You're looking at the sterilization of Latinas and Native American women in the 30s and the 60s. And these things have happened. And then you wonder why people are not forthcoming when it comes to clinical trials.
Yeah.
Or you're wondering why people aren't really participating in the healthcare system. The healthcare system was really never created for our benefit.
You nailed it.
I think it's at our detriment now. There's so much unlearning that has to be done, and it's just not being done.
How do we change it? What can we do?
What we've been trying to do is we've used this platform, like I said, that was originally for stories, and now we're taking it and we're going like, let's do a webinar. Let's partner with some researchers. Let's partner with experts and let's give women the chance to learn, and not just give women the chance to learn, but give women the chance to learn, then take what they learn and come back and teach their sisters, because that's what it's all about. You have to keep it going. So for us, when we decided to do our first webinar, we talked about fertility, breast reconstruction, and clinical trials. And if we're honest, the real thing we want to talk about was clinical trials. But we know there's already sensitivity to clinical trials in communities of color. So we couched clinical trials in between two other popular topics. It worked.
Very good strategy.
Yes, right? Like, if you want to talk about fertility.
Yeah.
So we couched it in between two very popular topics, but to our surprise, like, women actually engaged and they asked questions, and they asked questions that challenge those misconceptions, which is so important, because when you think about how implicit bias determines the way that doctors are interacting with patients, oftentimes women of color are just not getting the same options or not getting the same information. So we're creating a space for women to have those conversations with experts, and then they can take those new things that they're learning and those things that they're unlearning, and they can educate other people. And I think that's the beauty of this community that we're creating.
I think it's incredible. And you have my commitment. I will do whatever I can for you with whatever platform I have. So ask and you shall receive. Okay. Yeah, I truly mean that. So we got some questions. Hang on. And if you have a question for Jasmine, everybody, now's the time. She's hot and ready to answer them, and she knows her stuff here. So, first you have blessings for your health. I've been there. You're a brave warrior, girl. Big hugs. Marcia says, some of these are the same issues in Parkinson's, race, and being a woman. We get lost or left out of medical care or respect. Stay strong and make some noise. So thanks, Marcia. And then we have another question that people wanted to know if you could say what go back and kind of recapitulate the mission of the breast, the breast of us. I think you did a good job, but let's tell people one more time, because we're getting asked that.
So our mission at For the Breast of Us is to uplift women of color by sharing stories that educate, connect, and inspire. We're probably going to have to update that because we have our hands in so many pots these days. And it's been a blessing. I was talking to my best friend a couple of weeks ago, and I said, man, I just want to start a website. Like, that was it. And now we're doing advocacy and we're doing research, and we are having those conversations about how do the pamphlets need to be amended so that it's more inclusive to other people's experiences. So, like, we're only a year in, we're going into our second year, and it's just been a complete blessing to have all of these opportunities.
It is a blessing. And again, everybody, if you have questions, type them in. And honestly, please spread the word about the breast of it. So it's so great. What are some of because you're so amazing. It's already 33 minutes in, and we usually are coming close to wrapping it up, but I still have two more questions for you. What words of hope, inspiration? I always kind of try to for people that are so empowered like yourself, what's your dig deep? What do you want to tell ladies out there who are going through a cancer diagnosis or who have breast cancer?
I think the biggest thing is probably live now. When I was having to go through my bilateral mastectomy, it was my first major surgery. And I was like terrified. And it was interesting because I was terrified, but I knew my family was terrified too. So I tried to put on a brave face. And I remember like crying in the car all the way to the hospital. And then when I got to the hospital, it's like, we're going to clean up, strong face. We're going to go. We're going to get this over with. But when I got to the back, I could not stop. I was shaking horribly. I could not stop shaking. I was so scared. And I just kept thinking that people have died from worse. From less. People have died from childbirth. And if I died today, is that it? Like, because I played it safe and there are all these ideas that I have. And there are a lot of things I didn't act on because I was afraid that I would fail or that I was, you just let so many things distract you from purpose. And I was seriously thinking, like, how would I explain to God why I didn't do the things that I said I was going to do? Like, what's a good excuse that I would have if I don't make it off this table and this is it? And like, I was afraid, just did not seem, it wasn't a good enough excuse.
Yeah.
And so waking up, it felt like game on. It's like, I got the idea. Let's do it. We got to try. Yeah. I say now, like, I feel like I could, if I died today, I would be happy just knowing that I acted on the visions and just the things that God has put in my heart for me to do. So live now. We all have a ticking clock. Some of us are just more aware of it than others. And I think that awareness is a beautiful thing because it allows you to live with more intention.
I agree with you. And that's very, very well put. You're a lovely person. What's up next for you, Jasmine?
Oh my goodness. What's up next? So much, man. We've started some conversations about, like I said, how do we better educate women of color about their breast cancer journey? We are starting conversations about creating a training for our Accomplice Guide. The Solidarity Sisters webinar, it was amazing. More than 150 people joined us for that, and we only promoted in a couple of days, and we didn't record it. Sometimes I wish we recorded it. It was awesome, yeah. But we didn't record it because it felt like it was a sensitive topic, and we wanted to create a safe space for people to ask tough questions. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want people to be afraid that people would take their questions and run away with it into the greater world. So we are going to be creating a training for Solidarity Sisters so people can learn about the systemic racism in healthcare, how that's impacted our health disparities, and then more so what they can do to help us change that.
That's great. And I know you're going to also do some develop some training courses on systemic racism in healthcare, the disparities, like you said. You're also partnering, I've got here in my notes from talking with the Breasties, right? Aren't you going to be doing the campaign together?
Yes, we actually did the campaign on Monday. It is going to be the beginning of what we hope to be a very beautiful partnership. So what we did is that we did a campaign to amplify the voices and experiences of women of color in the breast cancer community. And so the Breasties identify influencers in their communities, which were primarily white women, but not all white women, but women that were willing to lend their platform for 24 hours to let women of color share their experiences. The hashtag is Baddies Up. You can check it out on Instagram. It was the most beautiful thing. When we did our recap post, I said, like, you guys remember, like, a year ago, we didn't even have a hashtag. We couldn't find each other. And now, not only do we have, like, you can follow Breast Cancer Baddies, you can follow For the Breast of Us hashtag, and now you're looking at the Baddies Up, and it's just stories of women of color that's sharing their experiences with breast cancer, and it was amazing. Our goal was like 12 people. I think we did like 20 plus matches because once people saw it, they wanted to keep it going, and that's what we want them to do. So, it's been great. I hope that we continue to do more work with them. And it was the Breasties and Anna Ono. So they also let us do a takeover on their page to educate people about the experiences of women of color.
That's great. And on our Snow Company's page, we will put all of the hashtags and the information so you can follow. And I love that this is the positive and the good part of social media, not cyberbullying, but ways to create this connection and community that, really is going to be a change agent. And it's an honor and a pleasure to talk to somebody that's at the forefront of being a disruptor and a change agent, and taking on something that is long overdue. I really, really, really commend you for all of your hard work, for your beautiful spirit. And I wish you so much good health. And again, if you ever need anything from me, you just call on me, and maybe I know how to connect or how to help. But keep up the very, very, very good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right, everybody. So I think that this is so fantastic, and Jasmine is so great that we're going to do a part 2 next week and talk to the other co-founder of the Breast of Us, and sort of hear a different perspective, but one that is also extremely important. And then, as I told you, coming up, we've got a lot of other fabulous guests, some healthcare professionals, some people from industry. So stay tuned for those. It may be that we're starting to record them and then pushing them out. Just, like I said, I'll let you know when that starts to happen. There's too many technical difficulties that sometimes happen, and I'm too old, right? If I was good at the computer and stuff, if I was Jasmine, then, but I'm not. So it's going to be easier for the old lady here to cover off some topics and be able to do it when I have people help me work all this stuff. So anyways, I want to tell you all to have, stay positive, be like Jasmine, be confident. Life can sometimes, with any chronic illness we're all facing, be overwhelming and scary and challenging. And, you add on COVID and, all of this stress. I think, I've seen it with people's faces these last few days. It just feels like, maybe it's the middle of the year, the weight of the world is on our shoulders. But like Jasmine said, live with intention, be present, and continue just moving forward with a smile on your face as best you can. So thank you, Jasmine. Mwah.
Thank you.
You're absolutely fantastic. I just loved it. I knew this was going to be great. And to all of you out there, I look forward to seeing you next week, whether the computer works or not. So until then, this is Brenda, and I wish you the best of health. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, honey. Bye.